All right, so today what I am going to show you is the first layer of your acrylic painting. So this is a small, tiny painting, and the idea is that this is a layering process. So acrylic paints, although they are more opaque than watercolor, the first layer that you paint generally isn't opaque. It is still a little bit see-through. And we're going to kind of use that to our advantage. So the first thing is, here is my drawing of my composition. And I'm keeping in mind, these are kind of the targets. I want about 10 to 15 different spaces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay, that's kind of a little crazy. And then I'm looking at my negative space. I don't have too much negative space. I'm going off all of my edges and my focal points off center. I believe my focal point's going to be here, but it does kind of depend on what type of values and colors I use. So first layer, I need a color scheme. My color scheme is going to be one of those based on the color wheel. It's going to have 3 hues in it, or 2 hues. So a hue is just simply the color name that we see. And then we are going to make tints, tones, and shades of those. So we're going to use that color. Let's say it's red violet. And then I'm going to be adding white to it. I can add gray to it. I can add black to it. I can even mix it with the other colors in the color scheme. So you're going to get those 3 or 2 colors, and you're going to mix up quite a bit of it on your color palette. So at this point, if you need to clean out from our last assignment, you can. I'm just continuing to use. The 3 colors I'm using are a triad, and they are red violet, yellow orange, and blue green. So I have red violet, yellow orange, and blue green right here. I'm going to do most of my mixing on this palette paper because that gives me more area. I also have black and white. You need to have black and white. I have it on my palette. I'm going to mix in with it. So on this first layer, I am going to paint all of the areas. I'm going to paint transitions, I'm going to paint flat values, and I am going to try to make contrast even now. So I'm only using those colors. Here's my first thing I want to recommend is that you start in your negative spaces. So your negative spaces, or your background space, or sometimes it's the largest area. So I am kind of planning ahead here. And I have some flowers. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my warmer colors in the foreground and my cooler colors in the background, because I have 3. Some are warm, some are cool. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my cool color, here we go, and I am going to be transitioning in the background. So whenever I transition, I want to pre-mix those values. So I am going to try to scoot this. Here we go. So there's my color, my blue-green. I'm making 1 value. It's a lighter tint by adding white. I'm going to add more white, and I'm going to paint the background spaces first. So when I paint, I always transition. When I transition, I start with my lightest value. So that's my pre-mixed values for my transition. I'm actually going to start with white. I don't have a big giant plan. I do notice on my canvas there's a little edge that I paint around. And as I paint, I want this to be smooth. So if you can see any brush strokes, I want to still smooth it out, because this is the first layer. All right, I'm going to transition into the next value. Remember, in order to make that transition fade, I need to keep my blending gradual by mixing in wet paint on my canvas. So I'm already starting to see a nice blend there. Now you decide if you want this textural or smooth. I'm kind of going for a little bit of a mixture right now. Then I'm going to take my next value. So I'm painting my background first. I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to finish this and I'm going to show you the rest of my first layer. All right, so one of the things that I kind of want to show you is that I'm done with my first layer here, and in the background. So what I've done here is I have made these gradual transitions. One thing that we're going to have to start doing right away is your edges, making sure your edges are neat. So in order to make sure your edges are neat and not all scratchy, you need to make sure you have enough paint on your brush. Now you don't want to have so much paint that it's globbing up everywhere. So that is kind of a delicate balance of how to, smooth out your paint, but also get all the way next to your edges. So we are not doing any outlining for this assignment. We're kind of learning how much paint we need, how to control our brush, and then also we're learning this layered approach. So I would make sure that all of my edges are nice and neat before I move on to painting another area. The other thing that I've done is I have painted around the edges of the canvas. So I don't want to wait till the end to do that. So the next step is going to be to paint more of my foreground things.